Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger. It's been 16 years since McCarthy has released a book, his last book being The Road, which I really enjoyed. Now, I'm not a Cormac McCarthy mega fan, but I have read The Road and Blood Meridian, and I very much loved both of them. This book is in fact a duology. So we have this one, The Passenger, and I believe Stella, which will be released in the UK at some point early December. Now, to many, McCarthy is quite Marmitey. I always thought a lot of people consider him to be the greatest living American author. And I can see why, because his writing is spectacular. Whether you like what he's writing about or not, his writing style is something that really gels with me. I would personally say that everything in writing is subjective. But I truly believe that when it comes to McCarthy's prose, it is objectively fantastic. You get a sense with McCarthy that every single sentence he's written, he has put so much effort into. He has pained over it. He has toiled over it. He has put everything into it. He's the kind of writer who I can imagine spends a good 30 minutes, an hour, just constructing a single sentence. Or at least, his style could not be like that at all. He doesn't often do many interviews or talk about his work. In fact, I think there's a recent video, which I might link in the old blurb below, in which he gives an interview, but that's the first one he's done since his Oprah one. He's very sort of reclusive. He doesn't like to talk about his work or his process. But I don't know, there's something in his writing style. When I look at it, I just know that this is a man who has thrown everything he has into every single line on the page. So enough of all that, let's actually talk about The Passenger itself. What is it about? Well, it has two characters. We have Alicia, who suffers with schizophrenia, and she has these hallucinations. And her sections in the book are these moments of her experiencing these hallucinations with this character called the Kid, who sort of haunts her and discusses life with her, and in many ways is there to help her or not, who knows. And those hallucinations give us little insights into Alicia's mindset and her journey, but it's very puzzling. We're left with loads of questions after every single chapter. We're just trying to figure out kind of where does this all fit in the timeline. We then have Bobby Weston in New Orleans, and Bobby is a deep sea diver, and his first section of the book, he is doing a deep sea dive to try and recover a fallen aeroplane. And when he goes inside it, he sees all the passengers there as if they hadn't even moved. They're just all sort of there, nothing quite feels right. And then he later finds out that a passenger on the manifest isn't actually there and is unaccounted for. And this sort of deep sea dive leads to a series of events of Bobby almost being kind of not on the run, but just on the move. We have two sort of agents who come to speak to Bobby about the deep sea dive, about what he saw, about what happened, and then everything starts to get a little bit weird for him. Everything starts to go a little bit downhill. This book is mainly dialogue. It's pretty much, I would go as far as saying 90% dialogue. It is Bobby Weston having conversations with a colourful cast of characters around New Orleans, or just sort of outside of it. It's through these conversations we get a kind of deeper connection to Bobby as a character, what he thinks, what he feels, little snippets of what his relationship with his sister was like, and everything kinds to build as we kind of engage in each conversation. This is not a plot-driven book. In fact, you would read the blurb and think it's maybe some sort of thriller with the whole agent aspect and the sunken mysterious person missing from the manifest, but that really doesn't come into play at all. It's always there underlining everything, but really this is just a book about Bobby discussing his thoughts on the world and the characters he meets and his kind of place in the world, their place in the world. He meets a trans character. He meets one character in which he talks about the assassination of Kennedy. And each conversation just gives us a richer idea of the kind of maybe futility of life, the idea of physics and metaphysics. Now, Bobby and his sister are both incredibly smart. They're both mathematically minded, scientifically minded, and their dad was one of the people who built the atomic bomb that blew up Hiroshima. We almost get a sense that it's this intelligence that's kind of caused this crack in Bobby's sister, Alicia, and why her schizophrenia is kind of taking over her. But it is without a doubt always present that both these characters are incredibly smart, and a lot of the people that Bobby speaks to are very intelligent as they discuss ideas of physics, metaphysics, science in general, the meaning of life. We get everything happening in this book. However, that's all this book is. And to say that's all this book is maybe seems like a bit of a disservice to the incredible writing. In fact, the wonderful writing that's taking place in this novel. I flew through this. It's like 400 pages, just under. I flew through it. Now, granted, I was doing it on audiobook and reading it, as I do most books actually, because of my commute to work, blah, blah, blah. And I just loved every single moment of it. I loved every single moment of it. But it's got no story, really. Or at least the story it does have is paper thin. It's more an exploration of humanity. It's more an exploration of kind of these two characters and puzzling and piecing together why they have ended up the way they have. I felt left with just as many questions as was answered in this book going through it. But I didn't mind that too much. And as it is a duology, as there is another novel coming out, Stella, which is from Alicia's perspective with her psychiatrist, I feel like we might get a few more details into why things ended up the way they did. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But you're not going into this book. You're really not going into this book if you're expecting some sort of like thrillery story, which I think the blurb kind of misdirects you on. You're going into this if you want to engage and listen to interesting characters, smart characters. Cormac McCarthy is clearly very interested in writing about and thinking about smart people, brilliant people, people who have changed the world. And that's very evident in what we have going on here. And I found myself having to reread chapters because a single sentence would make me pause and make me think for like 10, 20 minutes. And it's that kind of book. It is layered with such philosophical musings, brilliant philosophical musings, that yeah, after each chapter, I would have to pause and just take a moment and think about what was discussed and think about how does that apply to my own life. And I think any novel that's able to do that is definitely great in my book. But I will say this is not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone. If you like story-driven novels, if you like prose that is easy to connect to, is straightforward, then Cormac McCarthy is not for you. I've read Blood Meridian, as mentioned, and The Road from Cormac McCarthy before. And if you've read either of those books, then you will understand the prose style that McCarthy has. Very little punctuation, no speech marks. It takes time. It takes effort for you to figure out at times who is speaking, when are they speaking, what is happening. And if any of those things that challenge you as a reader, that force you to pay attention, are not for you, you prefer a bit of an easier ride, then yet again, Cormac McCarthy isn't for you. And I will admit, things were made easier for me because I listened to the audiobook as well. And the narration on the audiobook was absolutely fantastic. It was just brilliant. The voices of each character, the way they were brought to life, it did a lot of the work for me. So I will say that made my process through this book easier, and it probably would have taken me a lot longer if it wasn't for that. So if you are a little bit maybe put off by the writing style, then I strongly suggest the audiobook. I'm not going to give you too many more details than that, otherwise I would just be spoiling it. But this is really a book of dialogue, a book of conversations, of Bobby going on his journeys and meeting different people and discussing them, their lives, his life, and life in general. And if that sounds the sort of thing that you might be down with, something that's going to make you think about the world and your place in it, then this is definitely a book for you. I give this book 4 stars. 4 stars. I thought it was excellent. It was an excellent book. It's not outstanding because I am still a big advocate of story. I feel like if you are able to wrap up everything in this with something that has a little bit more plot, a little bit more story to it, then it would be without a doubt a 5-star book, outstanding. I need to think about this book for a little bit longer before I decide whether it's going to make my best of the year. But I will tell you this, there's only been a few books this year that have kept me thinking about it, kept me up at night, sort of thinking about the themes within it, for a long time after I'd finished the last page. And this is one of those books. And for that reason, it might make my best of the year. I'm not sure yet. Right, there you go. That was another rambly one, because all of my reviews are very rambly. I have no idea until I edit this whether I reckon I've done any justice to the book at all, because I just ramble at a camera. But thumbs up, please, if you like that. Let me know, have you read any McCarthy before? What is your favourite McCarthy novel? Mine is still definitely Blood Meridian, which is many people's. But yeah, how do you get on with McCarthy's writing style? Do you agree that he's one of the greatest American writers living? Yeah, let me know your thoughts. I feel like McCarthy is quite divisive, quite marmitey, and I can tell why. He's not the easiest writer to engage with. But yeah, there is something in that prose. It's just absolutely delicious. But there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.